This episode is proudly sponsored by HASA, the trusted choice for liquid chlorine. It's better because it offers the highest purity, works instantly, and contains no added CYA. By the bottom feeder, professional-grade battery-powered swimming pool vacuum system, it sucks to clean pools, so cleaning pools sucks less. Get $100 off the bottom feeder with code DVB100. Skimmer, trusted by over 30,000 pool service professionals across North America. Skimmer software helps you save time, grow revenue, and boost your 5-star reviews. Whether you're just starting out or expanding your team, Skimmer's easy-to-use tools and expert support have you covered. Upgrade your business in 2025 with Skimmer. Try Skimmer for 30 days for free at getskimmer.com/poolguy.
The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show.
Hi, welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. In this episode, I'm going to talk to you about safety and some toxic chemical hazards out there. Of course, we deal with pool chemicals because this is kind of what we do. And there are some precautions and some cautions that you should be aware of. If you've been in the industry for a while, you've probably discovered all of this by personal experience in a bad way. But I'm going to go over some of these so that you may avoid some of these issues out there on your pool service route. Join my coaching program and take your pool service to the next level. Connect with other pool pros in your area, gain valuable knowledge, and transform your business with personalized one-on-one advice from me. With over 36 years of experience, I'm here to help you succeed like never before. Learn more at poolguycoaching.com. The number one chemical that causes problems out there is trichlor, and trichlor in any form is pretty toxic, whether it's a tablet, powder, or granular. This is a highly toxic chemical. In fact, if you've ever seen them making trichlor tablets, or anyone who works in the trichlor industry, they wear hazmat suits, they wear these gigantic thick gloves. There was a customer on my route that his son worked in a trichlor factory here when they had one in California, but it's no longer here, of course. And he came out one day and he had all these sores on his hands, open wounds basically. And I'm like, oh, what happened? He goes, well, I was at the factory and I didn't have my work gloves and I just was wearing a pair of kitchen, dish gloves that you would find, the rubber gloves you would find for washing dishes. Big mistake, because the industrial gloves were what was protecting his hands from the trichlor, and it basically just burned his hands without him realizing it until afterwards. So it's a really highly toxic chemical to manufacture, and it's really toxic out there in the field, mainly when water gets into the bucket, or of course the smell can be very toxic because it is a really strong chemical, chlorine type. The tablets with the lids that seal well are pretty good, but sometimes the customers will leave them open. And if you've ever run into this incident in someone's backyard where you go to open a bucket of tablets and water had gotten in there somehow, it's overpowering and it can even knock you out because it's almost, I think technically it is a mustard gas kind of mixture. The same thing they were using in World War I when they were poisoning the soldiers. It's basically a toxic mixture of chlorine and acid because of the cyanuric acid in the tablet itself, or in the trichlor formula itself. You want to be very cautious when you open a bucket of tablets if you're not familiar with them. You take over a service account. This is where most of these accidents happen, in my opinion. You take over a new account, there's a bucket of tablets in the backyard already. You go to open it without taking the precautions because you're just doing your job and you're not really thinking about it, and you're not familiar with that bucket of tablets. It's not something that you put there yourself. I would say open that with a lot of caution. Maybe open the lid, step back, don't get close to it, have a mask on, in a lot of cases would help also. Those are the incidents that I found happened to myself and to others on my route when they open an unfamiliar bucket of tablets. Another toxic thing is the actual feeder, the trichlor feeder, the rainbow feeders. If they're not working correctly, if for some reason the tablets are not dissolving in there, when you go to open the top of that, there can be a toxic buildup also of fumes in there, because a lot of the times there's a lot of trichlor with no water in there, or a little bit of water, and a lot of trichlor tablets with air in there. And this gas is the same effect that you would have opening up a bucket of tablets that's wet and had water get in there. Also, the trichlor shock, that's also very toxic, has a strong smell to it. It's in powdered form, yes, but it still is really potent. And if those bags get wet or get a little moisture on them, it really turns it much more potent. So you want to be careful using the trichlor shock. And then one of my favorite products for algae and black algae is the HASA algaban, which is granular trichlor, and this also can be very toxic, especially if you're broadcasting in the pool and the wind is blowing and a lot of dust is catching in the wind and blowing back at you. Those toxic fumes can get you, and also your skin starts to itch because the dust gets on your skin, the microscopic dust, and causes you to have rashes on your skin. All of this to say that if you are handling these products, you want to wear gloves. Now, I have a new list. I have a new website button that I created on my website. If you go to swimmingpoollearning.com, you scroll down to the very bottom of the website on the home page, you'll see a button there, and that particular button is called Pool Guy Gear. And so there's my nitrile work gloves that I use there. You get them on Amazon. They're $10 for a dozen of them, or 6 pair. And these are really good. They work really well. They're work gloves that are nitrile coated, and they're great for trichlor when you're grabbing the tablets or using any chemicals, muriatic acid. I'll touch on that in a minute. So these gloves are great. They're $10 again for 6 of them. They're good. They get wet. They dry up pretty quickly. You can dip them in the pool and get all the chemical smell off of them. You can leave them in the back of your truck if you don't want it in your cab. But basically just take precautions with trichlor because, in my opinion, it's the most toxic chemical you're going to deal with out there, and it's the one that can do the most harm to you as far as lung damage and ruining your day basically by you coughing and doubling over and just gagging with the chemical exposure. If the trichlor gets wet in any form, it can be really overpowering. I guess I'll touch on muriatic acid because it's a multifaceted thing that can cause lots of problems out there. I'll touch on 2 of the main things you should be concerned about. One is the fumes when you're using it, and the other one is spilling it on the customer's deck, which tends to happen to even the best of us when we're really careful. I've had it happen to me where I've spilled a little bit on someone's deck, and I've been really careful with the muriatic acid when I'm using it out there on my stops. One thing I'll do often when I'm using it is I'll never put it down on a cement. That can cause a ring of acid on the cement if the bottle has some acid on it or residue on it. So never put it directly on the customer's deck. If I am going to put the muriatic acid anywhere, I'll put it down directly on the skimmer lid. It's plastic. If it does get stained, you can replace it. And I'll usually leave it in my tote or my cart for that matter, and I won't take it out of there. And I'll put it back in after I pour it because I don't want to leave it anywhere where it may stain. Not even on the grass because you can burn the grass and kill it in certain areas. So be really careful where you put the bottle of acid if you are taking it out of your tote or out of your cart. Make sure you set it somewhere, like in my example, on the skimmer lid. One thing I also do often is I'll take the gallon of acid and I'll dip it in the pool, and then I'll put it on the skimmer lid. So that usually washes off any residue that's on the bottle if I'm putting it down somewhere. Again, I never really take it out of my tote, but if I do take it out for some reason, or if I can't fit it in my tote, then I'll definitely put it on the skimmer lid after I dip it in the pool to wash any residue off. Now you can spill the acid in your truck. This happens sometimes. I'll spill some acid in my truck bed. You want to hose it off right away because it'll corrode any kind of liner. Even if you had a liner in your truck, it'll actually eat through it eventually. And you definitely don't want to splash any on yourself. I've had a couple incidents where the lid wasn't on tight, which is my fault, and I took it out of the container and it splashed some acid on me, and I had to hose it off right away, and you can burn yourself pretty badly. I always wear my sunglasses when even in cloudy days. I wear these sunglasses because they protect your eyes from acid, of course, or anything like that. So also on that list, there's my sunglasses that I use. I use polarized sunglasses. They're pretty good. They're safety glasses. They don't cover the eye entirely underneath, but they cover it well enough that anything that splashes on your face, it'll protect your eye from the acid. You don't want that in your eye, of course. It's going to burn like crazy. Not the best thing to do, and you want to just be careful handling it, and you don't want to leave it out anywhere where someone can get a hold of it. Now, when you pour it, there's a toxic smell to it as well. You can see this really well on a foggy morning. You can see the toxic cloud very clearly. Not so much on a sunny day, So if there's anyone around the pool, gardener, painter, homeowner, even a pet, pouring the acid can put off this toxic plume basically, which can go up and they can start gagging and choking. How do I know this? Well, I've actually poured it when there's people there that I didn't realize that they can get that plume. And I think it was a house painter, yes, on a ladder one time, a landscaper, customer's dog, myself when I wasn't careful. It's not something that's gonna, cause major harm, but it is uncomfortable. It causes you to cough and gag, and it's something you want to avoid. So be very cognizant of adding the acid to the pool. If there's anyone in the vicinity of you pouring the acid, and of course yourself, you don't want to double back once you pour it, because then you're going to get the fumes, and it's not something that is pleasant for sure. So the acid can leak on the customer's deck. As I mentioned, this is something that's somewhat curable. You can power wash usually a section of the deck and blend it in, and hopefully it's not a huge spill. But I have spilled drops of it before when I wasn't careful. And what I normally do is I'll power wash an entire section. You can even use a light acid wash if you wanted to do another acid wash on there to make everything look the same as well. I would caution that because you can make things much worse if you do that, and you could make the whole piece of cement look unbalanced with the other cement. To me, I found that power washing the deck really helps make everything uniformed again, and is something that can cover up any kind of acid spill. Sometimes you can't do much to fix it on the customer's driveway, so be very careful that you don't spill the muriatic acid anywhere around the deck or anywhere on the customer's cement. Now I use 31.45% muriatic acid on my route, so it does stain right away if a drop gets anywhere, so be very careful with it when you're using it. Again, dipping it in the pool is a great way to kind of clean the bottle off. Each time you had to stop before you put it anywhere, put it back in your tote, and it also keeps your truck clean. Here's one you don't think about much, but a bag of salt, and not necessarily at the customer's house, because if you get it on the deck, you can hose it off. But if you spill any salt in your truck bed, they're very poorly made, so they're not very puncture resistant, I should say, and they'll tear really easily. Even sticking your fingers in it to get it, you can puncture the bag. They're just not the best. Even though they're a pretty solid plastic, they tend to rip, and if you get your salt anywhere, you'll see bags ripped everywhere. And the problem with it getting in your truck is that it's highly corrosive, and you may not pay attention to it. And my Nissan Frontier had a Kelvar sprayed bed in there. It was a 2005 edition, and they actually sprayed the bed in there. It was really great and durable, but believe it or not, the actual salt ate through the bed, and you can actually see through the bed now in some parts of it. Actually, I still have that truck. It's not being used for pool service, but the truck is still here, and you can actually see through the bed of the truck, which is pretty cool, but not ideal for service. So I, of course, fixed that and covered it up. How'd that happen? Well, the salt got onto the bed. I wasn't really cognizant of it, and I didn't spray it off when I needed to. And eventually the salt ate through the bed of the truck over years of taking bags of salt back to the customers' homes. And this is, of course, decades of taking salt back in the bed, but it did eventually eat through the bed of the truck. It wasn't the muriatic acid. It wasn't any kind of chlorine that was spilled in there. It was actually the salt from the bags of salt. So that could be something to be very careful about if you're transporting bags of salt to the customer. Make sure you have, I would say, put a tarp down on your bed. Put the bags of salt on top of the tarp. And that way, if anything rips or spills, you can take the tarp out of the back of your bed of your truck and clean the tarp off. And that way, none of the salt will actually get onto the bed of the truck itself. For my Honda Ridgeline, I actually have like a carpet material in the bed. So the bed is actually sprayed. And then I also have a carpet that I use in there, which is really good. They make them for all different trucks. I can't remember the name of it, but you can look it up. And they're a black carpet about maybe 1/4 of an inch thick. And it has a double-sided Velcro that you can put on there, hold it in there. I find that to be really good at keeping these spills from touching the bed. And also it keeps stuff from moving in the truck bed as well. Most spills will happen when something moves in the truck, tips over, and spills in the truck. Now, I've only covered 3 chemicals here. There are a ton more I can cover. I'll touch on one more here so that it kind of finalizes the toxic chemicals. And you may not think this is toxic, and I get a lot of pushback with this one, and people are always like, it's not a big deal, you're a wimp or whatever. But diatomaceous earth in powdered form is actually an industrial carcinogen. In some countries, it's actually a straight carcinogen. And diatomaceous earth has silica in it. Now, the silica is where you get the lung problems from. And I've seen guys at the supply place taking one of those bags of DE and putting it into a conditioner barrel and just dumping it on the back of the truck with no mask on. The dust is going everywhere. In my opinion, if you really want to protect yourself out there, it's kind of all-encompassing with chemicals. And if you don't take precautions with using diatomaceous earth, you're really not protecting your health, because the silica in there is what causes the lung problems. And if you're just using it and dumping it in or transferring the bag and not being cautious by wearing a 3M mask or any kind of respirator while you're putting it in a customer skimmer and using that. Now, when it's wet, it's more inert, so it's not really bad. But I think after it's wet and you're cleaning the filter and it dries on the cement and is in powdered form again, I would take precautions with that as well. I'm a huge fan of the Celapool Low Dust DE powder. I think it's great. It comes in a bag that's more durable. The bags DE comes in is a joke. They're going to tear and rip and get DE all over the place. But the Celapool is more expensive, but it's a low dust, and so you're not going to have all that fine powder in the air when you're using it. And I just think taking that precaution is so simple to wear, even like a COVID type mask that you wear out there, the black N98 mask is fine. You just want to protect yourself from breathing in that fine dust. And it's okay if you don't want to use a mask using diatomaceous earth. It's your lungs and it's your future health. But I think it's super important to take precautions with every chemical you use out there to extend, of course, your lifespan and to prevent yourself from getting illnesses that can be preventable from the chemicals you use out there. So definitely wear a mask when you're using the diatomaceous earth, or switch over to the Celapool Low Dust diatomaceous earth, which is a great product. They don't pay me to advertise it. They probably should, but I tell everybody, hey, this is a great diatomaceous earth. Get this, pay the extra money, and use the Celapool Low Dust DE. But these are just 4 of many, many chemicals out there, and I'll probably have to do a follow-up with other chemicals, but these are the ones that I think are the big ones to be aware of and to be cautious with. If you're looking for other podcasts that I've recorded, you can find those on my website, swimmingpoollearning.com. Again, you can also find the links to the gloves I wear on that particular site on my website as well at the very bottom, and my sunglasses, and with the button there at the bottom. And if you're looking for podcast episodes, there's a podcast icon on the banner. Click on that. There'll be a drop to many of other podcasts for you there. And if you're interested in the coaching program, you can learn more at poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. This episode is brought to you by HASA, providing products that deliver clean, healthy water for every aspect of everyday life. The bottom feeder battery-powered vacuum system, portable, powerful, and only weighs 12 pounds. And Skimmer. Get Skimmer, America's #1 pool service software. Podcast listeners can try Skimmer for free at getskimmer.com/poolguy.